Salaam alaikum everyone. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. We seek refuge in God, Satan the rejected. In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful. Today's video, I want to go over the topic of intercession or shifa'an, according to the Qur'an. And let's start with Arabic corpus, which shows us that the root word for intercession occurs approximately, looks like 31 times in the whole Quran in various forms. So let's start here. Okay, so here's Project Root List, which looks up the Arabic root words and their meaning. Here's the one for shifa'an or intercession. It says, to make even that which was odd, make double, pair, make a thing to be one of the pair, adjoin a thing to its like, provide a thing which was alone with another, protect, mediate, intercede, be an intercessor. So those are some of the possible definitions of that root. Now let's see, according to Qur'an, how it's used. So let's go to 2:255 first. God, there is no other God besides him, the living, the eternal. Never a moment of unawareness or slumber overtakes him. To him belongs everything in the heavens and everything on earth. Who could intercede with him except in accordance with his will? He knows their future and their past. No one attains knowledge except as he wills. His dominion encompasses the heavens and the earth, and ruling them never burdens him. He is the Most High, the Great. For future verses, I'll focus on the part speaking of intercession, but just to give us a start here. So we learn here that no one can intercede with God except in accordance with his will. So to get a better idea of what that means, let's look at all the verses first. Next verse would be 485. Okay, so this is talking, the word here that uses that root is translated as mediates. So this is for people who mediate a good deed or an evil deed and incur a share thereof. So that's another form or another usage of the word shafa'atan, in this case, shafa'atan, to keep in mind as we keep going. So we saw 485 has it used twice. 753. Okay, so where is it used here in 753? Right here. Are there any intercessors to intercede on our behalf? Would you send us back so that we could change our behavior or do better works than we did? So these are those who disregarded the message and they're being questioned in the hereafter. And they're looking for intercessors to help them. But as we'll learn when we take all these verses into context, the only real intercessor is God, and God's hand is all power. 753. So now let's look at 2128, inshallah. So again here, let's look at the verse before this. So they're talking about the messengers, and they're making the claim that God has begotten a son. And he's saying they never try to utter any utterance before him. And now back to speaking of those messengers, God knows their past, future, and their present, future, and their past. They do not intercede except for those already accepted by him. So that's critical. There's no real intercession as in somebody having the power to override God's will. This is very important because today in the Muslim world, across various sects of Islam, there is this belief that your mother or past successors or the Prophet Muhammad or whoever it may be have the power to intercede on on your behalf at God. And that's a cruel, cruel lie, because that is belittling God's judgment and will against each and every one of us, saying that somebody else has more power than he does. So it's very, very important we understand this according to the context we see in the Quran. They do not intercede except for those already accepted by him. Next verse, 21:28. Now we do 2:48. And reverence the day when no soul can avail another soul. No intercession will be accepted, no ransom can be paid, nor can they be supported. So here it's pretty clear that no intercession will be accepted. So we have to ask ourselves as Muslims at this point, is God contradicting himself? Because in the previous verse, he says they do not intercede except for those accepted by him. So we have a couple possibilities here. Either there's a contradiction, which means it couldn't possibly be from God, because God never contradicts himself. Or when we, as human beings in our religious sects, look at verses like this and we say, oh, my mother or my father or Ali or Muhammad or somebody's going to intercede on my behalf. That's the only reason why I praise them, to get closer to God. There's another verse warning us about that in the Quran, by the way. But to stay on subject here, we know that they cannot intercede, and even when they do, it's only for those that are already accepted by him. So as an example, if on the day of judgment, God tells the angel Gabriel, you have the knowledge to determine whether this person is worthy of heaven or hell, according to what God bestowed upon him of that knowledge, we could consider that a form of intercession. But the reality is, it's already decided by God. They don't have the power to make a decision contrary to what God has already decided. 2:123. Again, no intercession can be useful, just like the last verse. 2:254. Before a day comes when there is no trade, no nepotism, meaning your friends and family can't help you get that job. They can't save you from what God has written for you. And no intercession again. All right, we did 254. Let's do 485. 485 we did. So let's do 1987. No one will possess the power to intercede except those who uphold the laws of the possessor of mercy. So you remember that example? The hypothetical that I came up with. It's not Quranic, by the way. I'm not saying this ever happens, but that example of God talking to Angel Gabriel, for example, they must uphold the laws of the possessor of mercy. So again, does anybody have power to truly intercede except according to what God has already willed? 2109. On that day, intercession will be useless except for those permitted by the possessor of mercy. And now that we've read the other verses, we have a better understanding of what this means, permitted by the possessor of mercy. These are those who are upholding God's laws. They are making a decision based on these laws that God taught them. They have no power individually. All they are doing is carrying out God's will. 34:23. Intercession with him will be in vain unless it is permitted for him. I see the error here. I think. Yeah, so again, It has to be something that has been taught by God, that's part of God's will. So again, no independent intercession here. 36:23. Shall I set up beside him lords, which if the possessor of mercy willed any harm for me, their intercession cannot help me with it, nor can they rescue me. Again, God is teaching us how useless it is to set up idols, even hero worshipping, past prophets, saints, martyrs, whoever it may be. They cannot help us one bit. God can help us. 39:44. Did we read that one? No, say, all intercession belongs to God. To him belongs all sovereignty of the heavens and the earth. To him you. So again, is God contradicting himself, or are we misunderstanding the proven word of God? 43:86. None of those whom they implore besides him possess any power to intercede unless their testimony is in accordance with the truth. Again, it couldn't be clearer, mashallah. So it's very important that we take the Qur'an into context here. 53:26. Not even the many angels in heaven possess authority to intercede. And remember, the angels don't have to go through the test we did, so they're technically one rank above us at least. Only ones permitted by God are those who he issues and approves. So again, it's people who are upholding God's law and the truth. Not necessarily people, but you guys know what I mean. 74:48. Intercession of the intercessors will never help. 89:3. So this is one of those other forms of the al-shaf'i, by the even and the odd. So this is one that we read here. It's not necessarily intercession, but rather talking about even and odd. So we can skip that. Move on to 651. They have none beside God as an ally, nor an intercessor. 670. Right here. It has none besides God, speaking of people or a soul, as an ally, nor an intercessor. It could offer, and this is important, it could offer any kind of ransom, it would not be accepted. So it doesn't matter who's on your side or how much you're willing to offer, can't avoid what God has written. 694. We're coming back as individuals, just as God created us, leaving behind what was provided to us. And we do not see with you the intercessors that you claimed they are your allies. That was 94. Let's do 753, which we may have done. That sounds familiar. Are there any intercessors to intercede on our behalf? I think we did read that one. Yeah, would you send us back so that we could change our behavior or do better? But at this point, it's already too late. 10:3. There's no intercessor except in accordance with his will, such as God your Lord shall worship him. 10:18. They're worshiping besides God who has no power to help or harm them. They say, these are our intercessors at God. Say, are you informing God of something he does not know in the heavens or the earth? Remember, God is all powerful, all knowledgeable. Nobody has independent authority aside from God. 30:13. Their idols have no power to intercede on their behalf. So 32:4. God is the one who created the heavens and the earth, everything in 6 days. You have none besides him as the Lord, nor do you have an intercessor. 40:18. The transgressors will have no friend nor an intercessor to be. 39:43. That sounds familiar. Have they invented intercessors besides God? Say, what if they do not possess any power, nor do they comprehend? All right, in 26:100. Now they're saying, consequently, we have no intercessors. Finally, 74:48. Intercession of the intercessors will. So when we take all these verses, we look at them in the context of the entire Qur'an, we can determine one of a couple things. Either this was not written by God and it's a clear contradiction that you can have intercessors, and then at the same time there's no intercessors, which my personal opinion is even a human being would avoid a contradiction like that if they had attempted to write this. Or we can believe that there really is no true intercessor except God, and anyone conforming to his judging laws, as we saw, and conforming to the truth. And there was another verse, let me see if I can find it. Here it is. So God, likely speaking to the Prophet Muhammad in this verse, 980, he's saying, whether you ask forgiveness for them or do not ask forgiveness for them, even if you ask forgiveness for them 70 times, God will not forgive them. This is because they disbelieve in God and his messenger. God does not guide the wicked people. So if somebody is already totally lost, it doesn't matter who intercedes for them, human, angel, jinn, or others. The fact is, if they do not fall within God's laws of mercy, if they've already transgressed the limits too far beyond redemption, there is no intercession for them. So I hope that very important topic becomes clear. I've talked to several people from different Islamic sects who say, no, your mother, if she wants, can intercede on your behalf, or this person can intercede on your behalf, or this prophet, or this saint, or this angel, whatever it may be. But the fact is, as we learn in the Qur'an, God's best and only source for our guidance is there is no intercession except according to the truth. So, Salaam everyone, and we'll see you next time, inshallah.